In December of 2010, police searching for a missing woman on a stretch of Long Island Beach discovered far more than they were looking for. Over the following months, the remains of at least 10 people were found along a single mile of Gilgo Beach. The case became one of the most complex and haunting investigations in modern American history, and for over a decade, the killer remained free, hiding in plain sight. This is the story of the Long Island serial killer. Chapter 1: The Search That Found Too Much. It started with Shannon Gilbert. She was 24 years old, a young woman who had advertised escort services online and had been reported missing in May of 2010 after making a frantic 911 call from a gated community in Oak Beach, Long Island. She told the dispatcher someone was trying to kill her. Then she ran into the night. Despite extensive searching at the time, she was not found. When Suffolk County Police returned to the area in December of 2010 to search again, they found something else entirely. Within days, the remains of 4 women were discovered, each wrapped in burlap sacking, arranged along a stretch of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. The women were identified as Melissa Bartholomew, Amber Lynn Costello, Megan Waterman, and Maureen Brainard Barnes. All 4 had advertised escort services on Craigslist. All had been strangled. All had been placed there by the same person. As the search expanded in early 2011, more remains appeared. A total of 10 sets of human remains eventually recovered from that stretch of coastline. They included an Asian male, a toddler, and a woman whose identity took years to establish. The investigation grew enormously complicated almost immediately. Multiple victims, multiple possible timelines, and a dump site that stretched along a well-known public beach that thousands of people drove past every year. Shannon Gilbert's own remains were finally found in December of 2011, about a mile from the other victims, in dense marsh. The medical examiner's determination was that her death was an accidental drowning, a conclusion that many, including her family and their attorney, disputed fiercely and continue to dispute. Whether she was a victim of the same killer or died separately after her frantic phone call remains one of the unresolved questions at the heart of this case. Chapter 2: The Phone Calls in the Profile. While investigators worked on identifying the remains and establishing timelines, something chilling emerged. A man had been calling the cell phones of at least some of the victims' family members after the women had disappeared and before the bodies were found. He called Melissa Bartholomew's younger sister Amanda repeatedly over several months, taunting her. He knew details about the murders. He described what he had done. The calls were brief, made from pay phones around Manhattan, and despite extensive effort, police were unable to trace them definitively to a suspect. But they gave investigators something crucial: a voice, a personality, and evidence of a highly organized, confident, and contemptuous killer. Behavioral analysts developed a profile suggesting the Long Island serial killer was likely a local man with knowledge of the area, possibly someone in law enforcement or a related field, given his apparent ease in avoiding detection near a stretch of highway that was regularly patrolled. He had likely targeted women advertising online because they were less likely to be immediately reported missing, and because their disappearances were less likely to trigger intensive police scrutiny, a grim and calculated selection strategy. The investigation was complicated by significant interdepartmental friction. Suffolk County Police took the lead, but the case overlapped with Nassau County jurisdiction, involved the New York City Police Department, and drew involvement from the FBI. Tensions between agencies over jurisdiction and credit were reported extensively. A New York Magazine investigation published several years into the case documented the dysfunction in detail. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you want to follow along with cases like this one. We release new content regularly, and every subscribe genuinely helps us keep going. Chapter 3: Rex Heuermann. For over 12 years, the Long Island serial killer remained unidentified. The case drew enormous media attention, spawned books and podcasts, and generated intense public speculation. Numerous individuals were named online by amateur sleuths, some of them wrongly, with real consequences for their lives and families. A former Suffolk County police chief named James Burke became a person of interest after his own serious criminality was exposed. He was eventually convicted of civil rights violations and obstruction of justice related to a separate case. Having beaten a suspect who had stolen a bag from his car containing personal items, Burke did not want examined, but Burke was never charged in the Gilgo Beach murders. Then in July of 2023, Suffolk County Police arrested a man named Rex Heuermann at his office in Midtown Manhattan. Heuermann was 59 years old, a married architect who lived in Massapequa Park, a suburban community on Long Island roughly 12 miles from Gilgo Beach. He had run a successful architectural consulting firm for decades, working on high-profile projects in New York City. He had a wife and 2 adult children. By all outward appearances, he was entirely unremarkable. Investigators had developed him as a suspect through a painstaking combination of old and new techniques. Cell phone tower data placed a phone registered to him near the dump sites, at times relevant to the murders. DNA obtained from a pizza crust discarded by Heuermann near his Manhattan office was matched to DNA recovered from hairs found on or near the victims' bodies. Hairs that had previously been attributed to an unidentified female, believed to be a woman associated with the suspect. That woman was identified as his wife. The hairs were likely transferred from Heuermann via items in his home. Investigators also discovered that Heuermann had conducted thousands of internet searches related to the case, the victims, and the investigation, including searches conducted during active periods of the police inquiry, apparently monitoring what was known and what wasn't. Chapter 4: The charges expand. Heuermann was initially charged with 3 of the Gilgo Beach murders, those of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello, who together with Maureen Brainard Barnes had been dubbed the Gilgo Four by investigators. He pleaded not guilty. In early 2024, additional charges were filed connecting him to the murder of Maureen Brainard Barnes as well, completing the set. Then, in a development that widened the case significantly, he was also charged with the murder of Jessica Taylor, whose partial remains had been found on Long Island years earlier. And in further charges filed in 2024, he was connected to additional victims, bringing the total number of murders he faced charges for to 6. As of the time of this recording, Rex Heuermann is awaiting trial. He has continued to maintain his innocence through his legal team. The proceedings have been extensive and complex, with voluminous evidence disclosed in court filings, including the detail that investigators found an extraordinary volume of violent pornography on his devices, as well as materials suggesting a long and deliberate history of premeditation. The case of the Long Island serial killer also sparked a broader reckoning. An independent commission was established in New York State to examine how law enforcement had handled, and in some critics' eyes, deprioritized, the cases of the victims because of their profession. The commission's work has pushed for systemic changes in how missing persons cases involving sex workers are investigated, and has drawn attention to the particular vulnerability of people in that profession to targeted violence. Shannon Gilbert, whose disappearance started the chain of events that uncovered the other victims, still has no murder charge attached to any suspect. Her family continues to believe she was murdered. The circumstances of her final night, the phone call, the flight, the gated community from which she ran, remain officially unresolved. The Long Island serial killer case began with a frantic 911 call and a single missing woman, grew into one of the largest serial murder investigations in modern American history, with at least 10 sets of remains discovered along a single stretch of beach. And after more than 12 years without an arrest, ended with a suburban architect named Rex Heuermann being charged with multiple murders through a combination of DNA evidence and digital forensics, with his trial still ongoing. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch more crime videos like this one by clicking on screen.